Rian glanced at his phone watch. It's almost 11 p. Damn, he muttered. He just finished his work after working overtime for a long time. Rian works as an accounting staff in a small office in the city. Because there was an important report that had to be completed that night, he was forced to delay his return. In a hurry, Rian walked towards the train station. The night was very quiet. There were only a few people on the road. The street lights emit a dim yellow light, and the night is getting colder. The train leaves at 11 past 10. If I don't hurry up, I can fall behind, he thought while speeding up his pace. Arriving at the station, the atmosphere there was not too different. It was quiet and a little gloomy. Rian walked to the automatic ticket counter and bought a ticket for Crete last night. He noticed that the station looked older and darker than usual, as if there was something different that night. But he ignored the bad premonition that slowly appeared in his mind. At the same time, the sound of the announcement was heard. The final destination train of Wetton Station will soon arrive at Platform 3. Please, passengers, get ready. Wetton Station, Rian muttered, repeating the name he used to hear. This is the path he walks every day. He calmed himself. Everything will be fine. The train arrived with a strange rumbling sound, sounding like the friction of scrap metal. Rian felt a little uncomfortable when she saw the train. The train looks older than usual with dusty windows and peeling paint. The train door opened slowly, creaking like the sound of an old wooden door. Several passengers boarded with blank expressions on their faces, and Rian followed him hesitantly. Once inside, the atmosphere is no better. The lights on the ceiling flickered as if they were almost off, and the chairs looked shabby and worn out. Rian chose a window seat that was a bit far from other passengers. When he sat down, his phone rang again with a low notification sound. There is no signal. Rian snorted. The signal here is always bad when it's night like this. He put his phone in his lap and stared out the window. The scenery outside is just a shadow of the city that is getting farther away as the train starts to move. The road is empty. Only the street lights are seen flickering in the distance. The air inside the train feels getting colder, even though the air conditioner doesn't seem to work. After a few minutes, a middle-aged man with a dull face sat on a bench across from him. The man looked straight ahead, his eyes blank, not paying attention to his surroundings. Rian felt a little awkward and tried not to stare at men for too long. He then turned his gaze back to the window. Suddenly, the lights on the train went out for a moment before turning on again. The creaking sound from the train wheels was heard more clearly in Rian's ears, as if the train was running on a very old and rusty rail. Then, the sound of the announcement was heard again. Next stop, Devil Station. Rian was silent. Satan Station? He muttered in confusion. He had never heard the name before. Satan Station? Why is the name so strange? He thought while looking for information on his phone, even though he knew there was no signal. The middle-aged man in front of him suddenly spoke in a hoarse voice. You heard it too, huh? Rian turned his head in shock, not expecting the man to speak. Yes, I heard, but that station has never been on this train route before. Do you know about that? The man just shook his head softly, his gaze still blank. No one ever knew the station, but all the passengers on the train tonight will definitely get off there. That answer gave Rian goosebumps. What do you mean, sir? This is the usual route, right? We should have stopped at Wetton Station. The man was silent for a moment before answering in a low voice. Wetton Station? That was before. Now we are all heading to the same place. Satan Station. Rian tried to win herself. Maybe this man is just delusional or misheard. He decided not to think too much about it and close his eyes for a while, hoping to rest during the trip. However, when Rian opened his eyes a few minutes later, the atmosphere inside the train changed. There were more passengers who entered silently, and all of them looked strange, pale faces with empty eyes, sitting still like statues. The feeling of discomfort was getting stronger, and Rian began to feel that something was wrong with this train. Rian looked at the middle-aged man, who was now sitting still as if he never spoke. A strange feeling crept him, but before he could take any action, the train stopped suddenly, causing his body to be pushed forward. The train door opens automatically, and cold air enters. Outside, Rian saw a dull station sign, which said Satan Station. A thick fog enveloped the surroundings, and there was no sign of life there. This is not an ordinary station, Rian whispered to himself. The train stopped at a mysterious station with a sign that says Satan Station. Rian was still staring at the board in disbelief. He tried to remember, but this station was completely absent from the train route he used to take. Everything looked so weird. This station is not listed in the map application, not in the list of train stops. And most terrible, the atmosphere of the station seems to be abandoned. Thick fog covered the platform, adding a gloomy impression. There was no light from outside, except from the dim lights hanging from the ceiling of the station. Tonight's atmosphere feels heavy and full of uncertainty. The train door opened slowly with a deafening creaking sound. A few new passengers entered, and Rian soon noticed that they all looked wrong. The first passenger to board was a young man with a pale, almost white face. He walked slowly, dragging his footsteps as if he was not excited. The man sat at the end of the carriage, far from Rian, but none of the other passengers noticed him. Then an old woman with tangled gray hair came in afterwards. She was wearing a shabby old dress, and her gaze was blank, as if she was not fully aware of her presence there. The old woman sat on a chair near Rian, only a few benches away from her. Rian felt his chest getting tighter. Something is wrong. He glanced around, but the passengers who were already in the train were still silent. Just like before, did not show any reaction. Rian cleared his throat, trying to listen to himself. Maybe they're just ordinary passengers. I'm just too paranoid, he thought, but his instinct refused to believe. There is something unnatural. The old woman nearby suddenly turned her head and looked at Rian. Their eyes met, and Rian felt a cold running from his back to his neck. The woman didn't blink at all. After a few seconds of silence that felt like forever, the woman spoke in a hoarse and quiet voice, as if to herself. "You, a new passenger, huh?" asked the old woman in a flat tone. Rian was surprised to hear that question. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yes, I just got up from the city earlier, but I've never heard of this station. Where's it, huh?" The old woman smiled slightly. Her smile was more creepy than calming. "The Devil Station, the place where all the lost people finally arrive." His words were accompanied by a strange, soft laugh, as if he was enjoying a joke that only he himself understood. Rian tried not to think about it too much. Maybe he's old. Maybe he's not fully aware of what he's saying, he thought. However, still, the atmosphere on the train made it even more uncomfortable. Not long after the woman spoke, a middle-aged man sitting at the end of the wagon, the same person who spoke to Rian in the previous chapter, suddenly stood up. He walked towards the door, but the train door did not open.
But wait, this journey is not over yet. What exactly awaits behind this forest? The answer is in part 2.
Bring it down,